Shalom.
Whoa. Let me see.
Want me to stop sharing for a little bit?
Wait. Let me see. Yeah, go to Blue Letter. All right, Con. Yeah, we're in there now. Con. Whew. All right. First and foremost, I'm gonna say, call halal Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. That's all praise to the Most High God in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, man. You know, it's Big Yachty back at it again with another breakdown. Today we're going, tonight we're gonna go into Zechariah the 14th chapter and break down basically break down a prophecy about the Mount of Olives being cleaved into two, right? And I got Soldier Mathathia with me. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Shalom. This is Soldier Mathathia. How y'all doing out there, man?
Kind. Yeah, we're gonna just jump right in it. Give me Zechariah. Give me Zechariah 14 real fast.
This is a book of Zechariah chapter 14. I'm gonna start at verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read out my Bible real quick. Behold, the day of Yahweh cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of the tree.
Wait, hold on. Are you reading on Blue Letter?
I'm trying to pull it up so like.
Yeah, read up that.
He was moving just a little bit too slow today. There we go. Behold, the day of Yahweh cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee.
Now, will you stop right there real quick? So when you see where it says, "Behold," let me flip to it now. It says, when it says, "Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoils shall be divided in the midst of thee." That's talking about currently in verse 1 through 2. That's talking about 70 AD. That's talking about us, our land being taken from us, our temple being destroyed, and basically the Abomination of desolation. Well, really, that temple's being destroyed. They say like that. 70 AD, the Roman Jewish War. Right? That's what this is going into. And we're going to evidently prove it the farther we go down. So go ahead.
Verse 2. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the horses rifled, and the women ravished, and half the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city.
Now check this out. This is how we prove this is talking about 70 AD. Because start back at the beginning of verse 2, real fast.
For I will gather all nations.
Okay, right there. Hold on, stop right there. It'll gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. Now, in this, when you look in the Hebrew, right, all nations isn't there. It's just goyim, or nations or peoples, right? So that's what that's going into right here, because it's not talking about literally all nations. Because we don't see all nations being gathered against Jerusalem until Joel chapter 3, and that's the Valley of Jehoshaphat. And that's not specifically talking about right here, because in Joel chapter 3, it talks about when the Lord saved us from our captivity. And then this happened. So this is how we know this is talking about 70 AD. This is one instance, right? We're going to keep going. Go up a little, go down a little bit. Go down to where it says city shall be taken. Go ahead.
I'll just start back from the top. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken.
And the city shall be taken. Now, when you look at SICARII, he's contemporary to around the Persian Mede captivity. Now, the city wasn't taken in the Persian Mede captivity. The city wasn't taken in the Grecian captivity. And in the beginning of the Roman captivity, the city wasn't taken until 78. Well, until the Roman Jewish War. And in 70 AD when we lost our temple, right? Now, when you see where it says, "In the residue of the people should not be cut off from the city," we weren't originally cast out at 70 AD. A lot of Hebrew Israelites just say, "Oh, 70 AD, we got cast out of our land." No, we got Jerusalem taken over and our temple taken over, and we were still there in captivity. Our wives getting ravished, the houses being rifled, and we had what was that? The house should go into captivity, like how I said before. But the Roman Jewish War happened between 66 AD and 73 AD. And in 70 AD, we lost our temple and Jerusalem was taken. And at the end of 73 AD, that's when we were expelled out of Jerusalem. And this is actually running in tandem with Daniel. Give me Daniel chapter 9 real fast.
Okay.
Right, because this is talking about matter of fact, I'll get it. Okay. I'll get it real fast. Because I want to stay where we are instead of doing all this jumping around. This is Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. It says, "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week." And we know, if you know anything about the breakdown of Daniel chapter 9, that 1 week is a similitude to 7 years. That's a whole breakdown in itself. But just to summarize it right now, that 1 week is specifically 7 years. And that's talking about the Roman Jewish War. And I'm going to read it again. It said, "He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week," now this is in the midst or the middle of the week. Now the Roman Jewish War happened between 66 AD and 73 AD. What's in the middle of that? What's in the smack dab middle of that? 70 AD. That's when we lost our temple, and it's going to prove it right here. It says, "And in the midst of the week, he shall cause a sacrifice and oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate." Why? Because this temple was taken. The temple was sacked. Even until the consummation, the determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Right. So that's running at the same. That's running in tandem with Zechariah chapter 14, verse 2. This is how we know it's talking about 70 AD. And if it's not talking about 70 AD, for this prophecy to take place, we would all have to be back in the land at that point. That's how you know this isn't. That's how you know this has happened already, because it talks. Read verse 2 again for me real fast in Zechariah chapter 42. Chapter 14, verse 2.
For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken.
The city shall be taken. Go ahead.
And the houses rifled, and the women ravished, And half the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city.
And the residue of the people should not be cut off from the city, because why we weren't fully expelled in 70 AD. 73 AD is when we were all expelled from Jerusalem. So even honestly, because when you're looking at that word, all nations, it's goyim, which is like just nation and people group, right? Christ talks about this in Luke chapter 21. Could you give me Luke 21 real fast? Luke 21 and 20.
The book of Luke, chapter 21 and verse 20.
Mm-hmm.
And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies.
See Jerusalem compassed with armies. When did that happen? 70 AD. Well, really the Roman Jewish War. But specifically right here, it's talking about 70 AD. Go ahead.
God. Then know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
What is that talking about? Just know your city is about to get taken and your temple is about to get taken. Go ahead.
Verse 21. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto.
So get away from Jerusalem, because it's about to get taken. You're going to go into captivity. Go ahead.
God, verse 23. Verse 22. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people.
Why? Because they're going to besiege your walls, like how Deuteronomy chapter 28 says. Because this is a cut on this right here is a cut on Christians when they like to say, oh, when Christ died, the law was done away with. Now, what he's talking about here about to be the days of vengeance. And it says there's going to be great distress in the land and wrath. Why? Because what is that? Leviticus. What's that? Where does it have the curses at outside of Deuteronomy 28? That's Leviticus 26, right? I believe it's Leviticus 26. Let me see real fast. I just want to make sure. We don't have to get it. I just want to make sure real fast. So I'm not. Yeah. Leviticus 26. And part of that, even in Deuteronomy 28, part of that is the enemies will besiege your walls. That happened in 70 AD. That happened in the Roman Jewish War. So why, if Christ died and now the curses are done away with and the law is done away with, why do we see people going into Deuteronomy 28 curses then? Like that's a direct cut, because this is specifically talking about 70 AD. Because when was Jerusalem compassed with armies? After this, the Roman Jewish War. Read verse 24 real fast.
God, verse 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
And that's how we know the people over there in that land are not Israelites, because Jerusalem should be trodden down by Gentiles, as meaning they shall be in ownership and possession of that land until their time is up. And when is their time up? When Yahweh comes back to set everything right and allow them to be put into captivity. That's the times of the Gentiles being fulfilled. So that's how we know. That's another way to know that that Zechariah 14, 1 verse 2 has to have happened already, because for Zechariah 14 and 2 to actually be a fulfillment of prophecy, the Israelites would have to be in Jerusalem at that time, and we know we're not. We know we're, even Yahweh said we'd be scattered in that same chapter when he's talking about I forget 70 AD, right? So read 14 and 2 again.
God, Zechariah 14 and verse 2. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city.
Now I'm gonna bring it back again and summarize it back again, right? We for this to take place, we would have to be in the land at this time. So it would have to happen before we left the land and were scattered. So this has to have happened already. And we know that Zechariah is contemporary to the Persian Mede captivity. The city didn't get taken into Persian Mede captivity. The city didn't get taken into Greek captivity or the Roman captivity until 70 AD or 73 AD. However you want to go about it. So this has to have happened already. Now go to verse 3.
God, Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 3. Then shall Yahweh go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle.
Now we have a time period change, right? Because after we got expelled from Jerusalem in 73 AD, we never got no recompense for what happened to us. We just went to the wilderness, the place that was prepared for us, like it says in Revelation 12. We went to the closer to the western parts of Africa until we were taken by the Edomites and then brought into America. Now, we never got no restitution for that. The Lord didn't come and fight for us then. So now we see if that didn't happen back then, we have to see when is this going to happen. And now you can go to Joel chapter 3. Give me Joel chapter 3 real fast. Because we're going to see when this is going to take place. Because this prophecy, like as far as Zechariah chapter 14, does the same thing Revelations be doing. Like how it'll jump from time periods and then jump back to a time period and jump to a different time period. You see that with Revelations 12 and 13, right? This is a question I got here. So Zechariah is talking about the past and then it jumps. Yes, it jumps into the future. And don't you have to believe it jumps into the future. I'm going to highlight that real fast. And I'm going to say it again. It says question I just got here. So Zechariah 12 is in the past. And when it hits 3 or verse 3, it jumps to a future prophecy. Yes, it does. Because you have to believe that, because after we got expelled from Jerusalem, the Lord didn't fight for us after that. He didn't destroy the people who expelled us from our land. So this has to be a future prophecy, and we're going to get it. Go ahead and get that in Joel chapter 3.
God, the book of Joel chapter 3 and verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
For behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem,
mm-hmm.
I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat.
Mm-hmm. The valley of Jehoshaphat, valley of judgment. Go ahead.
And will plead with them there for my people
mm-hmm.
and for my heritage Israel,
mm-hmm.
whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land.
And did what?
And parted my land.
Parted his land, just like how it says in Zechariah 14, where it says, behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. Now when it goes back to where it says he'll plead for his people, now give me Isaiah chapter 66. Let's see how the Lord pleads for his people.
God, the book of Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 15. For behold, Yahweh will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to
mm-hmm.
render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire.
Mm-hmm.
For by fire and by his sword will Yahweh plead with all flesh, and the slain of Yahweh shall be many.
So with fire and with his sword, he's going to plead with all flesh. How is he pleading with flesh? With sword destruction. That's what's coming. With sword destruction. And who is that destruction coming for? The Edomites. Who is our last captivity we're going to go into? The Edomites. That's Lamentations chapter 4. 2nd Ezra chapter 6 verse 9. What else? Obadiah, the whole chapter. That's when that's happening. And after that, then matter of fact, give me Obadiah the last verse, right? To prove what I'm saying.
God, this is the book of Obadiah, verse 21. And saviors shall come up on Mount Zion
mm-hmm.
to judge the mount of Esau.
Mm-hmm.
The kingdom shall be Yahweh's.
Mm-hmm. Now we see Esau. We know right now the kingdom or dominion isn't of the Lord right now. Edomites are in power right now. So when you see in the very end of Obadiah, when they're taken out of their power, then the Lord's kingdom will dwell on the earth. That's a future prophecy that hasn't happened yet. And what does that illustrate? That the Edomites will be the last ruling power. Just like you tie that up with 2nd Ezra chapter 6 verse. Give me 2nd Ezra 6 verse 9, instead of just saying it. Let's prove it.
One of my favorite scriptures in the whole.
And what's funny, it just so happens that that's the same people who invaded our land, besieged our walls, dismantled our temple, and kicked us out of the land. So just like how in Revelation chapter 13, verse 10, it says, those who lead into captivity shall go into captivity. It's a straight paradigm shift in verse 3 in Zechariah chapter 14, elaborating on how it's going to be done. Go ahead and get that.
God, you want me to go straight to the point? Or
yeah, go straight to the point.
God. 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse 9.
Mm-hmm.
For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth.
Mm-hmm. Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. And what's Jacob's kingdom? That Jacob's kingdom is Yahweh's kingdom. Why? Because he says in Daniel that the saints shall take the kingdom and possess it forever and ever and ever. And in Daniel chapter 2, verse 14, verse 44, we shall the kingdom shouldn't be given to other people. It should be left to any. As a matter of fact, let me just get it. Let me just get that right back.
I'm already there, actually.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Found the book of Daniel, chapter 2 and verse 44. And in the days of these kings shall the Most High of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever.
It shall stand forever. And who is that for? The Israelites, the saint. Now we can get that in Daniel real quick. Get that in Daniel chapter 7 and verse 27.
The book of Daniel chapter 7 verse 27. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High.
It shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, right? Now, when you see the saints of the Most High, what does saint mean? Set apart ones. Who's the only people who've been set apart? Israel. Go ahead.
Whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him.
All dominion shall serve and obey him. Now let me answer this question real fast. Go back to Obadiah chapter Obadiah, the last verse, because it says, "It's okay, SICARRI." You misspelled SICARRI. Bahashem Yahweh Shai. That's okay. It says, "Shalom, Ag. This is the Most High. This is the Most High you're talking about, correct? That will destroy with fire. No one else. No. Yahweh can't set foot, or Yahweh can't set one pinky toe on the earth without it being destroyed. The Lord will send his angels to do this. Just like how you see in Revelation 12. We can get that after this, but get that in Obadiah.
This is the book of Obadiah in the 21st verse. And saviors shall
what?
And saviors.
That's who is the Lord sending. Saviors. That's that angelic force he's gonna send for us. Go ahead.
And saviors shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be Yahweh's.
Now, who's getting it's just like he's sending his army out, just like he's called the Lord of hosts or Yahweh of hosts, hosts meaning armies. He's sending his armies out to come fight for us. Just like how you see in Revelation 12. Get that real quick. And then we can get back on point. Revelation 12 and 7.
The book of Revelation, chapter 12 and verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon.
Now, hold that right there. Now, contextually, the dragon is the European powers. The dragon is the embodiment of Esau, all the 7 heads and 10 horns of it. Go ahead.
And the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven.
They lost their power, because what is heaven similar to? You got three different definitions that you can really pull from. You got heavens as far as you look up in the sky, that's the heavens. Then you have the second one, which is a place of rulership, just like how the kingdom of heaven will be given unto us. That's talking about a high place of rulership. And the third one is the third heaven where the Most High is. Now we know it's not talking about that one. We know it's not talking about literally that one. It's talking about specifically that rulership that the dragon has, which was the European powers have. Go ahead.
Con. Verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan.
Because the Edomites are the opposer, or Hashatan, the adversary, and they're deceivers. Just like how they got everybody believing in freaking white Christ, having that big old statue. And was that Brazil? That's Brazil. They got that big old statue, right?
That big old says he be in Brazil, man.
Yeah, that's evident. It's evident that they're deceivers. Go ahead.
God, which deceiveth the whole world, he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
Mm-hmm. So all the European power was cast down, just like how we have in Obadiah. Go ahead.
God. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation.
Oh, what?
Now is come salvation.
Now is come salvation. Just like how in Obadiah verse 21, right? That was the last one, right?
God. No, that was verse 10.
No, I'm talking about in Obadiah. We read Obadiah 21, right?
God.
Just like in Obadiah chapter 21, where you see the Savior's coming up to judge the Mount of Esau, and right after that, you get the Lord's kingdom. Just like how when the dragon's cast out, which is that European powers, which is that the Edomite powers, when they're cast down, now has come salvation. You see how all of it is just tandem on the same thing. Just like when you see in Isaiah chapter 14, where it talks about Lucifer being cast down, the light bearer, and that's talking about Babylon. And now when that Babylon is destroyed, matter of fact, we can prove that. We went into that the other day at Bible study. Get Isaiah 13 real quick.
Yeah.
13 verse was it 15? I think it's 13 and 15.
Let me see. I will shake the heavens and the earth.
13, 15. No, it's not 13, 15. It's 13 and 19.
Okay, come on. That's it. The book of Isaiah, chapter 13 and verse 19.
Mm-hmm.
And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay, now stop right there. Right now, the Babylon, we all know, and anybody with a smartphone or a computer who can go on Google can go and find out that Babylon was not destroyed like that. Sodom and Gomorrah, they didn't get that fire raining upon it. That never happened to the old ancient Babylon. But what do we see in the book of Revelations? A new mystery Babylon that's going to get burnt with fire, and that's evidently proven throughout all of the later parts of Revelations, like 17 and 18, like in particular. Just like what you see in verse, I'm gonna read this real quick because it's in context. This is Revelation. I always pull this out on the streets. Revelation 17, verse 16. It said, the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, and we know that beast is Babylon contextually. Even verse 5 proves it. I'm gonna read it again. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast shall hate the whore. I mean, Slakia. The whore is Babylon. My bad. I misspoke when I said that. The beast is the European powers. As upon the beast shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Now you see, eating flesh being in the Bible is similar to like taking somebody out more. Just like how you see, what is that in Daniel chapter 7, where it talks about. Matter of fact, I'll read it. Let me just read it. I'm terrible at paraphrasing. Right. This is Daniel chapter 7, verse 5. It says, and behold, another beast, second like unto like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth, in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. That's talking about the Persian Mede captivity that we had, but really the conglomerate of Persia and Mede taking over Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt. That's the 3 ribs it had in its mouth, and it took them over by what? War. So when we see devouring flesh in the Bible, sometimes it means eating it. But in this case, just like how in Revelations, it's talking about taking them out in war. Now, we see this new Babylon is going to be burned up like how Sodom and Gomorrah was burned up with fire raining upon it. And it's going to be burnt with fire through war. That didn't happen to that old ancient Babylon. So that's what's going to happen to this new Babylon. And in this new Babylon, matter of fact, go back to Isaiah chapter 13 real quick.
Yeah.
Verse 19 again.
Book of Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19.
Mhm.
And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah.
Mhm.
It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation.
Mhm.
Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there.
Now, ancient Babylon, we see Arabians pitch a tent there right now. So either God's a liar or this hasn't happened yet. Letting you know that there's a secondary Babylon, which you see in Revelations. That's the whole point of me jumping to Revelation 17 to illustrate that. To illustrate that it's gonna be burnt up with fire, just like how it says right here. And the people who are running that, which right now is who? The Edomites. The Edomites run this Neo Babylon. The Edomites the Edomites run everything about Babylon. Anytime something needs to get done, who's one pulling trigger on it? The Edomites. So when this place is destroyed, just like how it says in Revelation 12, then comes salvation. And who's going to do that? Yahweh is going to allow that to happen when he sends Michael and his archangels to fight against them. Michael's archangel to fight against the dragon's angels, to where they're taken out in power. So they're taken out of they find no more place in heaven or rulership. Now let's go back to the point, because we kind of hit a long ass tangent on that.
Zechariah 14 and right back at verse 3.
Yeah.
Then shall Yahweh go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle.
Mm-hmm. Now we pretty much got that already. That's a different time period. Now it's going to do it again. Now it's going to change time periods all the way over again. Now go ahead and read verse 4, and then we're going to go back over it and break it down.
Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 4. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives,
Mm-hmm.
which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west.
Mm-hmm.
And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we see this Mount of Olives, this isn't talking. It's talking about the Mount of Olives being cleaved into two or cut into two, basically like it's splitting into two. The Mount of Olives splitting. Now, that's not. I'll just say it like this before we go into it and prove it. That's not literal, and the next verse will prove it. Because matter of fact, let's go to the next verse. Right? I didn't even think about breaking it down. Let's go to the next verse.
Verse 5. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
For the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal.
Now stop right there. Now that valley, right, is gonna come through that split in between the mountain, right? Now go to what that Hebrew word is for Azal. Yeah, hit that interlineal. You good? Go down. Or it says Azal. Click that. Right. To prove this isn't literal, because Christians believe this is literal, right? Now, the Hebrew word right there for Azal, right? It means the proximity he has reserved. Read the next one. What's the next one say?
A place near Jerusalem, site presently unknown.
Why? Because there is no place called Azal. It does not exist. It doesn't exist in the history books. It doesn't exist as a place biblically ever. It's not a real place. This is talking about what? The elect. This is talking about the people who the Lord's going to pardon. Now, give me Jeremiah. You can hit back and give me Jeremiah chapter 50 verse 20.
This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50, and verse 20. So, in those days and in that time, saith Yahweh, the iniquity of Israel shall be sought for, and there shall be none.
There should be none. Why? Because we're going to have the new covenant. Go ahead.
And the sins of Judah, and they shall not be found. For I will pardon them.
He shall do what?
And I will pardon them.
Pardon them the what?
Who I reserve.
Who he reserved. Who's the reserved ones? The elect. Now we're going to prove that by breaking down that verse. What was that? Verse 4? Verse 4 through 5 to show that that's not literal and actually illustrate what that's talking about. Now go back to verse 4. Because I wanted to get that point established to show that this isn't literal. This isn't a literal thing. This isn't a mountain about to just split into two. It's talking about something specific. Because as long as, and what proves that is the word is all. And it's evident. You can Google it right now. It's evident. There's no place called Azal. So if there's no place called Azal, that's like, how are you even going to decipher that? If it's literal, which means it must be what? It must be metaphorical. You have to see this through a spiritual eyes and a spiritual lens. So now we're going to go ahead and elaborate on what this is talking about. Read verse 4.
Zechariah 14 and verse 4. And his feet shall stand in the day upon the Mount of Olives.
Now, his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. Now we know, like I said before, Yahweh cannot step foot on this place without it being destroyed. There's like his pinky toe, a small hair off his arm can't hit this earth without it just dismantling and being destroyed. So this isn't talking about Yahweh literally walking on the earth. What is this talking about? This is talking about his son. Because who does Yahweh Shai back? Yahweh. Who backs Yahweh Shai? Who backs Yahweh Shai? Yahweh. So that's who this is talking about, and we're going to prove why it's talking about that. Give me Matthew chapter 24, verse 3. 24, verse 1, actually.
God. Look at Matthew chapter 24, verse 1. And Yahweh Shai went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to shew him the buildings of the temple. And Yahweh said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives.
As he did what?
As he sat upon the Mount of Olives.
As he sat upon the Mount of Olives. When you see Yahweh Shai teaching throughout the scriptures, as far as the Gospels are concerned, you see him periodically going to the Mount of Olives. You see him teaching I think the Beatitudes on the Mount. I believe it's the Mount of Olives where he teaches that. You see him teach a lot of his teachings. He teaches them at the Mount of Olives for a specific reason. So you understand who Zechariah 14 verse 4 is talking about. Who is the person who's going to be standing upon the Mount of Olives as talking about Yahweh Shai. And this ain't the only scripture that proves it. Read that again.
And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?
The end of the world, or the end of the age, or aeon in the Greek. But he's telling them deep things about what's going to happen in the future. Where? On the Mount of Olives. That's one. Now give me Luke chapter 21 verse 37.
The book of Luke chapter 21 verse 37. There we go. And in the daytime he was teaching in the temple.
In the daytime Yahweh Shai was teaching in the temple, and then what happened?
And at night he went out and abode in the mount that is called the Mount of Olives.
During daytime he was teaching in the temple, and then at night he went to go where? To the Mount of Olives again. That's two. That's a place he always resorted to. Yahweh was periodically there. Now give me John chapter 8, verse 1.
Book of John, chapter 8, verse 1. Yahweh went unto the Mount of Olives,
Mm-hmm.
and early in the morning he came again into the temple, and all the people came unto him, and he sat down and taught them.
Mm-hmm. That's another one. Again, him at the Mount of Olives. Give me Acts chapter 1, verse 9.
The book of Acts, chapter 1, verse 9.
Mm-hmm.
And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight.
So this is when Yahweh in the beginning of Acts, this is when Yahweh was received back up to the Father, and we saw him going up with the clouds. Now go ahead.
God. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Yahweh, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall come in like manner as ye have seen, as ye have seen him go into heaven.
Okay, now watch this. Verse 12 is the key point. Let's see where they were when this happened. Go ahead.
Then returned they unto Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet.
Oh man. So the last place we seen, like as far as the apostles speaking, the last place they seen him was at the Mount of Olives. That's when he got received back up to the Father. You see him being taken there when they came to take him. You see him being received back up there from received from that spot and sent back up to the clouds with Yahweh. And we see him resorting there throughout his ministries and when he was teaching. So is this supposed to be a coincidence? I think not. I think that this is supposed to be to fulfill Zechariah chapter 14, verse 4. So you understand who that's talking about. That's who was walking upon the Mount of Olives. Yahweh is a similitude to that. Now I'll go back to Zechariah chapter 14.
Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 4 from the top. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south.
Go ahead.
Verse 5. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal.
So we see this a valley being formed out of this mountain being cleaved in two. Now, if we know if Yahweh, matter of fact, let me look at something real fast. Get Zechariah 14 and 5 and go to the Hebrew. Go to where it says shall reach unto Azal real fast, because we know if the mountains is similar to Yahweh and it's being split into two, and it's supposed to reach unto Azal. Azal means the reserve. So the people who are going to go and flee through this are those people who are going to be the reserve, showing you that what Yahweh is the door. Matter of fact, get that after this about Yahweh being the door. I'm gonna find it. I'll find it. But let me look at this in the Hebrew. Hold up, press. Let me look at that in the Hebrew where it says reach.
Okay.
Let's see. Are you aware of typology? Oh my God! Here come the OT onlys. It didn't take long.
Oh no, this dude's been in here since we started, Yachty.
Yeah, I know. It's great, but we still love him though.
Of course.
But look at go down to the biblical usage
God.
for that word. So reach unto his all. It says to touch, to reach, to strike, to touch, to strike, to reach, to extend to. So this valley that's made in between this valley, this directly in between the Mount of Olives was split into two, will extend unto what the reserved. And what is that talking about? Yahweh being that door to Yahweh being that door to ultimately get salvation. And that's only going to happen to those who are the elect, because that's who's going to be pardoned. That's who's going to be pardoned and reserved and saved from that said destruction that's going to happen in this place, man. You say, what is this? I asked a question not for giggles, all biblical evidence. I mean, like, see, this is what I be talking about, bro. It's like you're sitting there trying to teach a lesson, and now we have to talk about. Oh, now I gotta prove something to make this guy happy. Nah, man, you're going to timeout. That's what we're doing. I'm teaching my lesson, bro. I ain't got time for the shenanigans.
There we go.
But right, what's that scripture about Yahweh being the door? I need that. The door. What is that? He's like, where I said, I am the door.
John 10:9.
What's that one? You know what I'm talking about?
I believe so. Let me see.
I think it's in John.
John 10:9. Yeah, the book of John chapter 10 verse 9.
Okay,
I am the door.
Mm-hmm.
By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved.
He shall be what?
He said, and by I'm sorry from top. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved.
Now, if we see Yahweh being the similitude to the mountain that's been cleaved into two, that makes the valley, and the people who flee unto that shall receive the salvation, it shows you that he's what? The door unto salvation. Read that verse again in John.
God.
That goes right with that.
John 10 and verse 9. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture.
And shall find pasture. What is that pasture? The first inheritance of the land. I mean, the first fruits of the land. Now go back to Zechariah chapter 4. Actually, get Jeremiah 50 and 20 again. So we can explain this one more time.
Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 20. In those days and in that time, saith Yahweh, the iniquity of Israel shall be sought for, and there shall be none. And the sins of Judah, and they shall not be found. For I will pardon them whom I reserve.
He's going to pardon them who he reserved. That's the people who are going to receive the salvation. Those are the people who are going to flee to the valley in between the split in the mountains to reach that parting, to be one of the ones who are reserved through Yahweh, which is what? The door. Read verse 5 in Zechariah chapter 14.
Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 5. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yea, ye shall flee, like as ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah the king of Judah. And Yahweh my power shall come, and all the saints with thee.
So we're gonna flee to this mountain, just like we fled from that earthquake, that historical moment that they talked about right there in the days of Uzziah the king. We're gonna flee to it. And through that, you have what? Access to salvation, access to be the reserve that's going to be pardoned, right? And now read that last sentence again, where it says, and the Lord shall come.
And Yahweh my power shall come, and all the saints with thee.
The Lord shall come and all the saints with him. Now watch this. Go to Revelation chapter 11, verse 12. Because they would flee from an earthquake.
The book of Revelation chapter 11 and verse 12. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in the cloud, and their enemies beheld them.
That, and you see a similitude with that just with Zechariah 14. The Lord shall come and the saints with him. Go ahead.
Verse 13. And the same hour was there a great earthquake.
Was a what?
great earthquake.
A great earthquake. And what is that great earthquake right here in Revelations? That's that what is that? The second, not the second, not the second. The sixth
trumpet.
The sixth trumpet. That's the missiles. That's that World War III. That's what's coming to America very soon.
That's right.
And hopefully expeditiously, right? But this is what this is talking about. Us being saved from that World War III, that whoa, that sixth trumpet. Us being saved from that and meeting the Lord up in the air and being saved. Now go ahead. There's more in Revelation.
Come. And the 10th part of the city fell, and in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted, and gave glory to the Most High of heaven. Gave
glory to the Most High in heaven. But it says the rest were affrighted because it's going to be what a frightening thing when we're saved. Because it's going to be like you barely make it. It's going to be like you see destruction coming and you barely make it, and you're still going to be scared up in the sky. And being transported from here to Israel is going to be a scary thing. And then going to the wilderness, which is going to happen after that, is going to be a scary thing. This guy's talking about me be humble. I'm here teaching a class. I want you to be humble and not ask questions matter of fact, don't try to get me off the lesson by trying to prove something to you. I have too many classes on. I have way too many classes on this. So I'm gonna keep it. You can keep it pushing, bro. To be honest, where was we at?
We was at Zechariah. Let's finish 13. You want to go into 14?
No, that's it. Go back to Zechariah.
Start back at 5 or go to 6?
Start at 5. We'll summarize it and then keep pushing.
Zechariah 14 and verse 5. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yea, ye shall flee like as ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. And Yahweh my power shall come, and all the saints with thee.
Now, what is that talking about? The same thing we just explained, which is where we know Yahushua is a similitude to the Mount of Olives, and that being cleaved. Give me I forgot. Give me Isaiah 53. Real fast. It talks the Mount of Olives being cleaved into two. Cleave is what? Cutting. As a cutting instrument to cut something, right? Now we see Yahushua being the similitude to the Mount of Olives being split into two, and a valley is made in between that to lead us to what? Salvation. It's like following Yahushua leads us to salvation. And that same salvation is salvation from the missiles that's coming here. That same salvation is from that World War III. That same salvation is from from everything that's going to happen to America until it's destroyed utterly to never be inhabited ever again. But we need Yahushua to be that door to lead us into that. But give me that in Isaiah 53. I think it's verse 8. No, it's not verse 8. Are
you looking for therefore I will divide him a portion?
No, that's not what I want. Where's he was cut out of the land? It's 8. It's 8. My bad.
Okay, the book of Isaiah, chapter 53 and verse 8. He was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. He
was cut off, just like how the Mount of Olives was cleaved into two and made a way for salvation. Yahushua was cut off out of the land of the living, and for our iniquities was he stricken. For our sins was he stricken. That's why I say he's going to pardon. That's like why it says in Jeremiah 50 verse 20. That's why I had that read twice, because he's going to pardon those who are the elect. Which means what? The elect are going to have some sins they need to be. The elect is going to have some sins that they need to be pardoned for, and that's why we need Yahushua. Now we can go back to Isaiah chapter 14.
Isaiah chapter 14. Wait, you mean Zechariah 14? You said Isaiah.
That's Isaiah? I mean Zechariah, my bad.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I was looking at it. I flipped to it too. I was looking at Isaiah when I said that.
Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 6. And it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear nor dark. Verse 7. But it shall be one day which shall be known to the Yahweh, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light.
Now check this out. That's going into the same. Now go to Revelation 22 real fast. That's going into the same thing. Revelation 22 verse 5 is talking about how they say, there's not going to be no light. There's going to be no need for the light. As a matter of fact, we're just going to read it. We're going to read it. All right. I'm terrible at paraphrasing.
The book of Revelation chapter 22 and verse 5. And there shall be no night, no night there, and they need no candle, neither light of the sun, for Yahweh power giveth them light, and they shall reign forever and ever.
Now, what is that going into? That goes into, because it says that there's gonna be no need for the light. That doesn't mean there's not gonna be lights in the kingdom. That doesn't mean like we're not gonna have no type of luminary. That's not what that's talking about. That's talking about how we're going to be a light to the Gentiles, just like how in Isaiah chapter 14, Esau or the European powers or the people ruling Babylon right now specifically are the light bearers at this time. They're Lucifer at this time, but just like how in Isaiah 60 says, we're going to be a light to the Gentiles. This one, we're a light to the world, because the world's going to sit in darkness, and people are going to have to come to us to get the wisdom and knowledge of the Lord, because it's going to be with us. Because just like how give me Isaiah chapter 2. Hold where you at, and go give me Isaiah chapter 2.
I was already flipping to it. Book of Isaiah chapter 2, and I will start at verse 3. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the Most High of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. So
that's when we're going to be the light to the Gentiles. Because you didn't read verse 2. Read verse 2 real quick, because I want to establish something.
Verse 2. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it.
All nations shall flow unto it. Why? Because we're going to be the ruling power at that time. We're going to be above everybody. The Lord's house is going to be established above everybody. That's Jacob's kingdom, like we talked about in the very beginning of this lesson. That's our kingdom. And when we're in rulership and when we're in power, the nation and kingdom who doesn't want to serve us is going to be utterly destroyed, and people are going to have to be forced to come to our temple and come learn of the ways of the Lord from us. That's the light. That's the light that's going to be happening. That's the light that is talking about in Zechariah chapter 14, and in Revelation 22 and 5 right there. Because even when you look at the Hebrew word for light, I think it's, or light or shine, I believe it's Zahar. I believe it is. Either way, when you look for the Hebrew word for light, it's also a similitude to teaching people and learning. We won't have to worry about getting this light anymore, because when you see in Hebrews 8 and 8, where it talks about us getting the new covenant, or Jeremiah 31 and 31, it talks about us getting the new covenant, and now we have to teach every man his neighbor. Why? Because the laws will be in our inward parts. Not like how the Christians say the laws are in inward parts. I mean, as far as like it'll be downloaded into our mind until we can't break them. That's why it says in Jeremiah 50, where it talks about the Lord is going to be seeking out for the sins or transgressions or iniquity of Israel, and he's not going to find any. Why is he not going to find any? Because the law is going to be downloaded into our inward parts. We're going to have the new covenant, and then now we're going to be able to be that light unto the Gentiles and teach people. That's why it's talking about the living water you see in it's the same chapter. Go back to Revelation real quick.
Revelation 22 and 1.
Yeah.
Revelation chapter 22 and verse 1. And it shewed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of the Most High and of the Lamb.
No, stop right there. Stop right there. Go back to Zechariah real fast, and we're gonna jump right back to that because we're gonna be able to explain what that's talking about. Verse 8 in Zechariah 14.
14 and verse 8. And it shall be that day, in that day, that living waters shall go out of Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea, and half of them toward the hinder sea. In summer and in winter shall it be.
No, that's basically talking about always at the very end of that. But it's talking about that living waters shall go forth out of Jerusalem. That living waters is what we talked about in Isaiah chapter 2. That's talking about us teaching the people. That's about us teaching the nations and ruling over the nation. That's that living water. Now go back to Revelation 22.
God.
And we're going to prove it.
God. I get one?
Yeah, start at 1.
God. Revelation chapter 22 and verse 1. And he shewed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of the Most High and of the Lamb. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits.
Well, how many manner of fruit?
12 manner of fruits.
12 manner of fruit, showing you what? That's talking about Israel. That's that living water. That's that tree of life. Israel in their right place as being leaders of the earth and being teachers of the earth of righteousness. Go ahead.
And yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations.
And it's for the healing of the nations, right? So the healing of the nations goes into us being like how in Isaiah chapter 2 it talks about how they'll beat their weapons of war. I'm just gonna paraphrase it. They beat their weapons of war into items used to prune the land and to basically be servants, be servitude. We're going to be for the healing of the nations because we are going to set the world in its right place. There's not going to be any more world wars. There's not going to be any more people. There's not going to be any type of just people just walking in darkness anymore because people are going to come seek and serve our power. They're going to learn the ways of God through us. Just like how we're going to be the priests of the Lord, and they're going to be the servants while they're being servants, just like in the gospel in Isaiah 61, just like how they're going to be the servants. Let me just read it.
Come on, back in Isaiah 2?
No, I'll read it.
Okay, fine.
This is Isaiah 61, verse, let me see. Built always. Yeah, this is Isaiah 61, verse 5. And the stranger shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. But ye shall be named the priest of Yahweh. Men shall call you ministers of our God. You shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall you boast yourselves. So, as part of the gospel, it's also going into what this is going into about the Revelation 22, when it's talking about us being that tree of life, us being that tree having 12 diverse fruits, and it's yielding in each month. That's talking about us being consistently the priest of God. Literally setting the world how it needs to be set up. Because the way it's set up under the Edomites is everybody submits unto them, and everybody goes without, or you have to be greedy to make it anywhere on this planet. And when we're in rulership, it's not going to be like that. That's what that's going into. No, what was that? Where was we at?
Zechariah 14 and 8, which is the
14 and 8. Okay, go back to that.
God. The book of Zechariah, chapter 14 and verse 8. And it shall be in that day that living waters shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea, and half of them toward the hinder sea. In summer and in winter shall it be.
Just like the fruit, just like the fruit yielding in every month. Why? Because we're going to consistently and perpetually have the Spirit on us, so we cannot go off, and we'll be perpetually in the right mind, having the laws downloaded into our inward parts, so we continually teach the people and not ever have to worry about going off ever again. Keep going.
Verse 9. And Yahweh shall be king over all the earth. In that day shall there be one Yahweh, and his name one.
and it's name one, showing you got one name, and which is Yahweh. But that's pretty much it on that. It's basically just talking about how everything's going to be set back into place at that time, where his kingdom is going to be on the earth, ruled through Yahweh Shai, being head over that, having the disciples, the elect, and and the rest of the 1/3 in the ruling power, and everything's set how it should be, just like how it says in Daniel chapter 9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down. And once the Daniel chapter 7 verse 9, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, where the ancient of days did sit. And what is that going into? All the other kingdoms and other rulerships of heaven being dismantled, to where his kingdom is on earth, his dominion is on earth, to where everything is set up how it's supposed to be set up. How we have, like how, and matter of fact, go back to Isaiah chapter 2 again.
Yeah. Isaiah
and read verse 4.
God,
We didn't read that.
Chapter 2 and verse 4. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks.
Mm-hmm.
Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
Mm-hmm. No, so just like I said before, you have world peace. The way the world's set up right now, it's not under the dominion of the Lord. It's not. The world isn't set up. It's not set up to where the righteous people who are in charge. It's like our Proverbs says, like when the wicked are in authority, the people mourn, but when the righteous authority. Matter of fact, let me get that. Or do you got that?
When the righteous are in authority?
Yeah. Was that Proverbs 16? Let's get the righteous authority. What is that?
Proverbs 29.
Let's see.
No, I got it. It's Proverbs 29. Proverbs 29 and verse 2. When
Yeah.
the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice.
Mm-hmm.
But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn.
When the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. People mourn when the Edomites are in charge. It's just like you see how the world's set up. It's constant war, constant greed. Yeah, you damn near have to get over it. Like you think about how the American dream is set up. You really have to get over on somebody to succeed in this place, or you have to. I don't want to say the C word because they'll strike my video. But you have to. What's another way? You got to Uncle Tom your way up to the top. And when we're in rulership, it don't have to be like that no more. It's not going to be It's not going to be no more world wars. It's not going to be any more X, Y, and Z evil stuff that the Edomites allow to go on and perpetuate, and with their wicked holidays and with their wicked ideologies. That's all going to be gone when we're yielding that fruit again. Because give me 2 Ezra chapter 9 verse 31 to also show what that fruit is as well.
You said 21?
So what?
You said 21 or 31?
No, 2 Ezra 9 and 31.
The book of 2 Ezra chapter 9 and verse 31.
Mm-hmm.
For behold, I sow my law in you, and it shall bring fruit in you.
Mm-hmm.
Ye shall be honored in it forever.
The law, when we keep the law, it sows fruit in us. What's that fruit? That fruit of righteousness. Now, when we're operating in that at that time period, we're going to have the new covenant to where we can't go off, and we're going to perpetually be operating in that spirit, back to back to what we get. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1 through 14, where we get nothing but the blessings, where we're the head and then they're the tail. And it has to be like that because we can set the world aright to where the Lord's kingdom is on earth and everything is set up how it's supposed to be. Because until all of Israel gets woken up, or the elect when the elect gets until the elect gets woken up to who they are and start doing what they're supposed to be doing, the world is going to be out of whack, man. And that's what the end part of Zechariah 14 is talking about. When the elect actually takes part in what they're supposed to be taking part of, as far as seeking out Yahweh Shai to where he can fight for us and then bring us out of this place, and then make it to where we are set up to be the light to the Gentiles. Just like how you have in Isaiah chapter 60 going on down. That's the whole crux of what Zechariah 14, 1 through, was that 1 through 9? Yeah, that's the crux of what that's talking about, except the first two verses when it's talking about 70 AD. That's what that's going into, right? What is that? Is that Ram in the chat?
Yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah, man. Let Ram lace him up real fast. I ain't trying to do it right now. I'm trying to teach class.
I taught him for a little bit, so he'll hop back up in here.
Actually, where's this guy? Dwell in the land. Do this. Let's do this right fast. SICARRI. I mean, hit email that and let's set something up, man. Let's do that. Email that and let's, because I'm not trying to do no loud thing right now. I'm about to enjoy the Sabbath like it's intended.
There you go.
I'm trying to enjoy the Sabbath smoke free.
You see?
Yeah, man. But that's pretty much the gist of what I wanted to go over. So with that, I'm gonna say call halal Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai and say shalom.
Shalom.